Come with me to a magical place where being labeled the pork queen is a compliment, where being nice is just a way of life, and where all leaders of the free world must pass through. Welcome to Iowa. Whether you're a current Iowan, an Iowa expat, or an Iowan at heart, this show is for you. This is the Iowa Podcast. Real Iowans, real talk, no drama. From the Jethro's Barbecue Studio, I'm Justin Brady, and one of my friends almost died. Almost. I say almost because he got an organ donation that saved his life. It took a while to wait for it. It's an industry right now that's under heavy scrutiny because of the HHS report that showed organ procurement processes, in some cases, may have begun before signs of life showed that that was okay to do. So the harvesting of the organs perhaps before the person was actually dead. It sounds kind of crazy. And that's just a preliminary report. They're going to look into it. And so, of course, this is a very concerning issue for Iowans because we love our fellow Iowans. We want to get them the organ donors and the organ donations that they need. But this could cause concern if we don't really know what's actually happening in our state. So in order to do that today, Suzanne Conrad, the CEO of the Iowa Donor Network, joins us to break it all down. Thank you for coming in the studio to discuss this. Is a tough topic.
Yeah, well, it is. And thank you for asking me. It's complicated. It's not a soundbite, so I appreciate the opportunity to give some context to some of those headlines that have been out there.
Yeah, absolutely. Sound bites don't really... I actually like that you said that because sound bites are completely useless, which is why on this show we do a half an hour with people. We get into the issues. I don't know if you guys are aware of this. We don't edit anybody. We never edit anything. So what the guest says is what goes through, and that's how we like it here. As a quick reminder, if you like Jethro's Barbecue, and this is a weird transition, but we love Jethro's. They make this possible, so it's a big deal. And if you like barbecue, you can get a $30 gift card for free if you just buy a $100 gift card. And you can get that on iowapodcast.com. Scroll to the very top, click the banner. That's it. Like, fill in your details. Or just go to a Jethro's and say, hey, we love the Iowa Podcast. That's great too. Suzanne, so I'm pretty confident at this point you've seen the HHS report.
Oh, yes.
And there's a quote from it I'll pull here to start things off. Our findings show that hospitals allow the organ procurement process to begin when patients showed signs of life, and this is horrifying. Now, this was not Iowa. It's very important to point that out. The HHS notes this is an OPO that operates in Kentucky, Ohio, and West Virginia. But the big question is, has this happened in Iowa?
Well, first, let's back up and let me explain that by Medicare regulation, hospitals are supposed to call us when a patient begins to show signs of loss of neurological function. So that can be almost anything. Neurological devastation can occur when you have a car accident, a stroke, a drowning, any number of issues. And patients will begin to show signs that are concerning, and they indicate that the patient may or may not survive. And so they're supposed to call us at that time so that we can make a plan of conversation with the hospital staff and with the family. So that's very normal, and it happens all the time, here and everywhere else in the country.
And you're saying that process is what happened. That's right.
The process. That's the process.
So let's talk about the process. What is the process? You kind of alluded to it there. Mm-hmm. You kind of gave us a 30,000-foot view that they call you when there are signs of neurological degeneration. Right. We get things ready. Can you break down for Iowans what that process actually looks like and give them a look under the hood?
Yeah. So there's really two ways that someone can become an organ donor in Iowa. The more well-known, if you will, passageway is to be declared brain dead. And when you are brain dead, you have lost all neurological functions. You can't breathe on your own. You can't swallow. You can't gag. You can't blink. It's the very traditional way that people have been portrayed in hospitals. Brain dead patients are maintained on ventilators because they can't breathe, and truly they have lost all neurological function, and they have been declared brain dead. There is another category, and those are donors after cardiac death or donors after circulatory death. And those are patients that are very close to being brain dead, but not there. They cannot be declared brain dead because they still have some neurological function. They may have a very weak respiratory drive. They may have a cough or a gag, but they will die within a period of time after being taken off the ventilator. And it is those patients that are taken to the operating room. The ventilator is removed, and then we wait until the heart stops beating and the patient is declared dead. And then we move forward in rapid fashion to do organ recovery.
Yeah, and for those listening, I know this is a heavy topic, but it's obviously really, really important. I think most Iowans would be shocked, and this isn't a bad thing, but most Iowans don't understand the nuance of medicine and how things work. So most of us know what we know from pop culture is usually what forms opinions. And what we think is we see beep, 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 and that means dead.
Right.
That means someone has passed away. But what I'm hearing you say is that works great in movies, but that's not really how we determine death in this country or in this state, right?
Well, there's two ways to be declared dead. So the circulatory death is the sound you made where the machine essentially flatlines. And then if you are brain dead, your heart is still beating because you are still on a ventilator. And those patients can be taken to the operating room and we can recover organs and then turn the ventilator off because they are already dead. In the other scenario, we take the patient to the operating room, we remove the ventilator, and we wait. And if death occurs within 120 minutes, then we can proceed with organ donation. We never proceed with organ donation until the patient is declared dead by hospital personnel.
So it's so there's part of the process is that hospital personnel have to make that decision.
Right.
When they make that decision, that's when your role happens.
Correct.
And you guys, you're technically called an OPO.
Right.
And this is, as all medical language, one of the laws in this country is that it must be confusing. I believe that was passed by Congress in 1962. Just kidding for people. I just made that up. But the OPTN is the national thing. They set rules. They set all that stuff, the logistical stuff. Then there's the UNOS. They're a national thing, the United Network for Organ Sharing. And then there is the Organ Procurement Organizations. You are here.
Yes.
You are an OPO.
Yes. Yes. So, yes, it is a word salad. And
yes, it is.
Organ Procurement Organization is a government term because, unfortunately, in the government parlance, we are considered a supplier. Mm-hmm. And so, therefore, suppliers supply, and I guess it probably grew out of defense contracting language. So that's where Organ Procurement Organization came from, and that's what we are.
Okay, so there are clear and set boundaries. Is it like a health administrator, or is it the like attending physician in a hospital that declares someone dead, or do you have to bring in a specialist for that? Well, what's the chain of command? Someone actually has to say rubber stamp the process. Who is that person?
It can be really. It can be the bedside nurse. It can be it can be a resident if it's a teaching hospital, or an attending physician if it's out in the community. Anyone can call us, and what we do then is we speak with the attending physician to let him or her know, hey, we've been called, we've been asked to come and evaluate this patient, and then we get on site and we do our evaluation to determine whether or not the patient is a suitable potential organ donor. Because in addition to the neurological issues that I talked about earlier, if the patient has metastatic cancer or an overwhelming infection, that is also going on at the same time, that person cannot be an organ donor.
Which makes sense.
Right.
Yeah, because you don't want to move cancer into someone else who has a shot at life.
Correct. So that's our role, is to come in. We're also the specialists and talking to the family. Even a large teaching hospital can have 7 or 8 intensive care units on its campus, but they're not going to see organ donation every day. And that's what we do. So we know how to communicate with families. We know how to talk to bedside nursing, to residents, to medical students, to nurses, nursing students. We talk to everyone. We explain the process, and we work with the family. Organ donation is not like you see it on TV. It doesn't happen within a 60-minute episode. Organ donation tends to take a couple of days. And families, for the most part, families accept that because they're not quite ready to leave their loved one. And so they have this time where, yes, they know organ donation is occurring, and the time that they give us is the time that we use to place the organs.
Yeah, and like we rode this roller coaster with a dear friend of ours who is alive, thanks to probably your network. I don't know all the networks at play, but he's in Iowa, so I'm assuming you had a big part in that.
Yes.
But I do want to go back. So this gives us a really good overview of how it works. But I want to go back to organ procurement process to begin when patients showed signs of life. So this is what the report shows, that the organ procurement process began when patients still showed signs of life. Has that happened to your knowledge in Iowa?
Sure. We get the referral, and the patient still has signs of life. In those situations where we're talking about donors after circulatory death, we take that patient to the operating room, and they still have signs of life. The ventilator is removed, and then we wait. We wait until the patient is pronounced dead.
So with that answer, then, you're no pun intended.
Yeah.
You're inserting a little nuance. You're saying that, okay, sure, the report's accurate. We agree with it. It actually happens here in Iowa, but it's not so cut and dry. Like, part of some of these patients are showing signs of life when the process happens. But that's part of the process. Like, I think there's some gray area people are probably picking up on, and they're like, wait, hold on. So you're saying that in Iowa, we start to operate on people with signs of life, but one of those signs of life is, in this case, someone's brain dead and their heart's still pumping. We consider that a sign of life, but we're still operating on them. Is this kind of help me understand this gray area? I know it's a hard question, but help me understand this.
So when the patient is declared brain dead, if there was no mechanical support, if there was no ventilator, that patient's heart would stop. Because the patient's on a ventilator, their heart is still beating. So to the lay person, they are seeing signs of life. The other side of the coin is donors after circulatory death, where they have some rudimentary signs of life when they're taken to the operating room, and then they're removed from the ventilator, and then we wait until they're declared dead. We never operate on someone who is not declared dead.
And that's never happened to your knowledge in the state?
No.
Yeah.
Never.
Okay. And that's probably where that brings some clarity to the conversation, because what do you think this report will find? And I understand you're not an expert, but do you, from just the top level things you've been hearing, do you think this is just a nuanced issue that as they dig down, they'll find out that it's actually probably fine? Or are you concerned when you see something like this?
Well, my concern is that it's been sensationalized. I'm 100% certain, because I know the people involved, and I've known some of these people for a very long time. They're going to find that the patient had some neurological function, was taken to the operating room, did not pass within 120 minutes, and was taken back to a hospital room or perhaps to hospice. And in this case, the patient didn't die, but in most cases, the patient will die within a couple of days. Interesting.
So this is interesting because the organ procurement process does not mean operating on. Like you're saying, the organ procurement process begins when someone still has a chance at life, but that's by design because we need to be ready in case something happens.
Right. You're
So,
right.
Okay, got it. So this is where the nuance is.
Yes.
When they say the organ procurement process began when patient showed signs of life, I'm just reading the quote. That's why I keep saying the same words. You're saying, well, yeah, that's how we do it. We want to,
referral.
we want to be ready in case things happen because then speed matters.
Right. So it's a very fine line and a delicate balance, because if you're the family member and you've been dealing with this for days and you finally make the decision, okay, we're going to withdraw life support. He or she, my loved one, is not going to make it. If you've already been in the hospital and you've been dealing with this for a week, then someone says to you, because we have to wait as the organ procurement organization, we have to wait until the family has made the decision to withdraw support. It's at that time that we can talk to the family about end-of-life decisions that need to be made. And a very important end-of-life decision is whether or not the loved one wanted to be an organ donor. If they were on the donor registry, then it's up to us to say, now that you've decided that you're going to let your loved one go, did you know she was registered as an organ donor? And so it's good if we are involved a little bit ahead of time so that we can be ready when the family is ready to make those decisions. Because it, as I alluded to in the beginning, it's often a couple more days that we're asking for.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. So I want to go back to something you said, which is fascinating, which is I really don't want to put words in your mouth, but you know of or know the OPO in Kentucky, Ohio, West Virginia, and in your opinion, again, you haven't seen all the data,
Right.
but in your opinion, nothing fishy is going on there.
No.
Okay.
No, I feel very certain that they may have had a person who was not completely trained, or there may have been a miscommunication, because we are talking about human beings. This is all done by human beings. And typically it's in the middle of the night or after many, many hours at the bedside. So I'm not saying that a mistake can't be made. I'm saying there's no ill will. There's no maliciousness.
Right.
And this is how it's done.
Has this news nationally or local, you have local figures, maybe you have national figures too, but has this news and this report impacted donations yet, or are you expecting it may?
Oh, it has.
It already has.
It has impacted us. And in fact, we've had over 200 people call us here in the state of Iowa and taken their names off the donor registry. And across the country, donor registries everywhere are experiencing this, that because of the sensationalism of the headline, people don't really dig in and look at the whole story, or they don't read the report. They're taking themselves off of donor registries, and which is very unfortunate.
Do you think any practices, not saying there's anything done wrong here, but do you think any practices or the way things are communicated changes from here on forward?
I don't think we would do anything differently. Yeah. I feel like we are doing what we need to do, and we're delivering a service to grieving family members and giving them the opportunity to consider that something good might come out of a terrible situation that they're in.
Yeah, absolutely. Are there any incentives, not saying financial, maybe there's financial, are there any incentives at health systems or for physicians to get organ donations, to get more organ donations?
No, there's no financial incentives at all. In fact, by federal law, it's illegal to buy and sell organs. And we are a Medicare entity, and we're scrutinized. Our finances are scrutinized every single year by Medicare.
So how do you, like from an economic scale, this is one of the dirty things about healthcare, is the fact that it does cost money.
Sure.
There's a harsh reality to life. And this is not cheap, transporting an organ. It's not cheap. So how do you function? How does an OPO even function if it's illegal to sell or buy organs which I think everyone likes to know. And that's a good feeling, like, oh, good, that should be. But then that's quickly followed by, wait a minute. How do you even function this? How do you perform such a service?
Well, that's a really good question, and we spend a lot of time. In fact, it's part of our new employee orientation. We make sure that all of our employees understand, because that's probably one of the first questions that family members ask of new employees is, how are you guys funded? We are a nonprofit. We have a board of directors, and we are allowed to bill for the service. And it's not the organ that we're billing for, it's the service. So from the time that a family authorizes donation, or if it's a donor on the registry and it's a brain dead donor, we take over responsibility for the bill. So ICU charges, operating room charges, all of that part of a patient bill goes to Iowa Donor Network. We pay the bill, and in turn, we bill the transplant centers for the organs. So we're always operating, looking in the rearview mirror. So what we are billing this year for, say, the price of a liver or a kidney is how much it cost us last year. And we take all of the expense, whether it's for a liver or a kidney or a heart or a lung, and by cost accounting, we figure out how many did we actually transplant, and that's how we bill the transplant center. And all of that, as I said before, is approved by the federal government. It's scrutinized by the federal government. So we're allowed to pay staff, and we're allowed to do all of that because it's the service that we are billing for.
How does allocation work? Because that's the other thing that you're heavily involved in.
Right.
And, someone passes away. And I've heard so many stories about individuals who connect with their donors eventually, if that's possible. Some cases it's not. But the stories are incredible. But I think people are very curious, how does the allocation process in an organ donor scenario even work? Someone is deciding this heart, this kidney, this liver goes to this person. How does that whole process work?
Well, I'm glad you asked. It's very complicated, and I think people operate under a misnomer that there's a list or that there's one list.
Oh.
In fact, every transplant center has a list of patients for each organ, whether it's a kidney or a liver. We, as the organ procurement organization, we don't get a list until we have a donor. And when we have a donor, we take the medical criteria of the donor, such as the blood type, the height, weight, all of that, we put into a national computer, and the national computer spits out a list and tells us, based on those criteria of that donor, here are the patients that we need to contact. And so, and by nationally, the nation has decided that children have priority. And then after children are those people who are very highly sensitized, whether they've gotten a lot of blood transfusions because they've been on hemodialysis or they've been transplanted before. They're going to react to a large portion of the population and reject organs. So it's children, the highly sensitized, and then we work down the list. And the list that we have is provided to us by the, as you referred to earlier, the OPTN, the Organ Procurement and Transplantation Network. And it is that federal contractor, which is UNOS these days, gives us our list, and we work down the list. And that's why it can take days, because in the end, we are offering an organ to a transplant, either a surgeon or a physician, and it is up to him or her to decide whether or not their patient is a good match for that organ. And then on the patient side, it's also very complicated because not all patients are created equal. Some are elderly and they're sick. And so then we go down the list and we get turned down a lot. And that's why I say it can take days to place organs from a donor.
Wow. Huh. So, yeah it's. I like how you said there's not just some list we're working through. Because if you really think about it, it's different organs, different criteria, different blood types, different geographical locations. So instead, what you're doing on a local level is when there's a patient that has, an organ donor patient that has given their organs to someone else to preserve life elsewhere. You input that data into a database. That database spits out information saying, here are the people that qualify. And then you reach out directly.
Correct.
And make that handshake. And I guess I'm using an IT term, a handshake in software. But you basically reach out and make that plan. And then the doctor, the attending physician at the time, is basically going to make a decision if this works or it does not work.
Correct.
Then you have to transport it there.
Right. That's right. And each center that we offer to gets 30 minutes to make their decision. So a lot can go on in that 30 minutes. They may not be able to find their recipient. The recipient may not call back in 30 minutes. And so that's why it's grueling. It's really grueling. And it's very hard on the donor family who is waiting all this time to find out, when are you going to go to the OR and what have you placed?
Yeah, absolutely. Transportation is another thing. And I know that you're mentioning it's complicated and there's a lot of process here. So transportation is one interesting aspect. We're getting flagged here. Your recording stopped. Oh, okay. I guess my video recording has stopped. We're just going to let that go for now. Nope, I appreciate that. Transportation is one concern. Yes. Getting an organ to another location, right? And so a lot of people may hear, wow, this sounds like a really, really complicated thing. There's a lot going on. What's the percentage chance an organ makes it from a donor to a patient?
Well, it's about 100% for hearts and lungs. And livers probably in the 90%, and then with kidneys probably 75 or 80%. And it's all because of how long the organ can be outside of the donor's body. So in every situation, like for a heart or a lung, the surgeon from that center or a surgeon from that center is flying here or driving here to get that organ and is going to take it back and put it in that patient. When we get involved with, say, commercial air carriers, if we're going to send a kidney to New York from here, we're probably going to put it on an airline. And then
really?
Yes.
Wow.
And then it has to go and fly to New York by commercial carrier, get picked up by a courier, get taken to a transplant center, and then make its way to the operating room of a transplant center on another coast. So every step along the way, there are reasons why something didn't quite go well.
Goodness gracious. So if you're the next time you're in a commercial flight going somewhere, there could be an organ being transplanted or transported on that plane.
Correct.
So do they have people that attend? Like, do they have people that carry these things as carry-ons? I would assume someone's with them, right?
No.
No,
actually,
so sometimes you ship it.
Right now, we just got permission from the FAA to put the kidney back into the cabin. Since 9/11, we've been having to put kidneys in cargo. Wow. So it's below the hold, so there's no visibility. So before the terrorist attack of September 11th, kidneys routinely flew and were seen in the cockpit or sometimes in first class if there was a seat available. But since then, everything has had to go through cargo, and that's where a lot of the mistakes have happened.
Wow. Interesting. I had no idea.
But FAA is now allowing us to consider going back to the cabin, and we're delighted about that.
Yeah, and would that be like someone transporting it then, or would there
Not
be just...
Not necessarily. It's still in a box. It would typically be in a box. It might be in a machine that's pumping, and in that case, that would be with a person.
Got it. So there are protocols, like this is handed to a flight attendant. There's a certain code. They know where to put it. They know how to handle it.
Yes.
This is how this works.
Yes.
Got it. Fascinating. Suzanne Conrad, the CEO of the Iowa Donor Network. I have reached out to many people to break this issue down, and I have been turned down one after the other by physicians. And one physician in particular put it out to his network of 10 other physicians. And he said, every single one of them gave me the same response. I don't want to touch that issue. And so I appreciate you coming in here and actually digging into what is a very complicated issue, because it's my fear that two things are true, right? If the HHS has, they dig and they find nothing is there. If we don't bring transparency in Iowa, we will create a bigger problem. And if the HHS digs in and finds there is something there, Iowans need to address this clearly and transparently in order for it not to affect the donor network. So I appreciate you doing that for us on the Iowa podcast. Thank you so much for coming on the show.
Well, again, thank you for asking me. And like I said in the beginning, it is very complicated and it's not a soundbite. So thank you for listening and taking the time.
And I don't want to let you out of here without you explaining what the website is. And if people want to donate and support your mission, where do they go?
Sure. So if you want to sign up to be an organ and tissue donor, you can go to www.iowadonornetwork.org. We also have an 800 number, but most people like to go right to the website and get registered. So the 800 number is 800-831-4131.
And for anybody listening, if you do go check the YouTube video, I'm being told by one of your colleagues here. I think this is the person joining us actually got a...
Yes, Nick got a kidney.
Got a kidney
transplant.
through your network.
Yes, we did.
Yeah, he's shaking his head. So I appreciate the video audio support on the site. Yeah. So anybody wondering where the video is, what cut off early, that will be why. We'll look into that next time. Suzanne Conrad, the CEO of the Iowa Donor Network, thank you so much for coming on the show.
Thank you for having me.
Hey everyone, Justin here. Death is not the easiest topic to discuss. It's a hard one. It's pretty heavy. But I want you to think about this. What were to happen if you died right now? You died on the job. A lot of you listen while you're working, while you're commuting, while you're driving for your job. What would happen right now if you died? Or if you got severely injured on the job? What would you do? What would your family do? If you don't have an answer, that's a problem, because you're leaving them to pick up the pieces. I had Nate Bolton in here. He's an Iowa workers' rights attorney to talk about this very topic. Like, what do you actually do? How should you prepare in advance? He spent 20 minutes with me just giving you resources to tell you what to do, what to plan for, how to act, who to call. And so his number one chunk of advice is just have a plan ahead of time. Deal with the reality. It'll probably never happen, but just have a plan. The whole show's free. It doesn't cost you anything. iowapodcast.com/Nate. iowapodcast.com/Nate. Listen to that interview. It's so much good information. And to my fellow Iowans, Iowa expats, and Iowans at heart, thanks for listening and subscribing to the Iowa Podcast.